Narration: 41% of ASML's China-adjacent revenue is now sitting under a single Huawei patent filing, number CN1193420887A, public, downloadable, filed October 14, 2025. The title translates to LogicFolding. And if you hold ASML, TSMC, AMD, Lam Research, or KLA in your portfolio, the next 10 minutes will tell you exactly which of those tickers just got re-rated and which one quietly benefits. Because this filing does not break physics. It does not skip a node. It does something more interesting: it routes around the export control regime using lithography. China already owns /n/n first, the 15-second what this is not, because the technical audience will eat us alive if I skip it. LogicFolding is not a 2-nanometer replacement. It is not working silicon. It is not in mass production. It is not a physics breakthrough, it is an architectural and packaging filing. It does not eliminate EUV demand globally. And it does not, despite the headlines, mean ASML loses China. ASML still ships DUV into China, and a DUV-centric Chinese strategy ironically pulls more DUV tools, not fewer. Hold that. The investment thesis depends on it, /n/n now the patent itself. CN1193420887A, filed by Huawei Technologies through its Shenzhen IP arm. Claim 1, in translation, describes a vertically stacked logic die assembly comprising at least 3 active transistor layers bonded via through silicon vias at sub-400 nanometer pitch, with an integrated microchannel cooling structure inside the interposer. 3 active logic layers. Not cache. Logic. That distinction matters, because cache stacking has been solved since AMD shipped 3D V-cache on TSMC SoIC in 2022, and Intel's Foveros Direct has been roadmap public since 2019. Stacking active logic is harder by an order of magnitude. Every layer generates switching heat, and heat is the wall /n/n. Compare the numbers. TSMC SoIC achieves bonding pitches around 9 micrometers in production, with sub-micron pitches in research. Intel Foveros Direct sits near 10 micrometers today, with a 3-micron roadmap. Huawei's filing claims sub-400 nanometers. If that pitch is achievable at yield, and that is a massive if interconnect density jumps more than an order of magnitude versus current Western packaging. Not lithography parity. Packaging density parity through a different physical pathway. That is the technical insight worth pausing on /n/n what the patent does not prove. Filings are not silicon. The semiconductor graveyard is full of brilliant filings that never cross 10% yield. Huawei has filed more than 1,400 semiconductor patents in 3 years according to WIPO data through Q3 2025. Most will never ship. The real question is whether SMIC can manufacture triple-layer active logic at commercially viable yield. Published academic trials have never exceeded 30%. That is the gap between IP and product, and every honest analyst should foreground it /n/n. The thermal solution is where the filing gets specific. 2 mechanisms. First, microfluidic cooling channels etched directly into the silicon interposer, a technique IBM Zurich demonstrated in lab conditions in 2023 but never commercialized at wafer scale. Second, asymmetric layer assignment, where high switching frequency blocks sit nearest the heat spreader and low activity blocks fold inward. If both mechanisms function as claimed, thermal density becomes manageable for inference workloads, where average switching activity is lower than training /n/n, which brings us to the workload split, and this is what finance Twitter keeps missing. Stacked logic is excellent for inference. It is poor for training. Training hammers every transistor simultaneously and generates peak thermal density no current cooling approach can dissipate through 3 or 4 bonded layers. Inference is bursty, asymmetric, memory bandwidth bound. So when Huawei's Ascend 920 tapes out and Reuters reported tape-out completion in September 2025, expect an inference processor, not a Blackwell competitor. That positioning is the entire commercial thesis /n/n market sizing. Jon Peddie Research's Q2 2025 report puts Nvidia at roughly 92% of AI training. McKinsey projects inference will grow to 70% of total AI compute spend by 2028. Semi-Analysis modeled in their November 2025 subscriber note that if Huawei captures 15% of Chinese domestic inference with a part priced 40% below H20, that is a $25 to $30 billion revenue line by 2027. I cite Semi-Analysis specifically because Dylan Patel's team has been right on Chinese capacity forecasts 3 quarters running. TechInsights' Dan Hutchison made a similar argument in his October note. Architecture, not lithography, is now the competitive vector, \n now ASML, because the headline writes itself but the reality is more nuanced. CFO Roger Dawson confirmed on the Q3 2025 earnings call that China represented 41% of EUV-adjacent revenue in 2024, that figure bundles DUV, service, and retrofits. If LogicFolding scales, the mix shifts. China buys more DUV, not less. More hybrid bonding. More wafer-to-wafer tooling. ASML still owns the absolute bleeding edge outside China, where TSMC, Samsung, and Intel all need high-NA for 1.4 nanometer. The stock trades near 35 times forward earnings as of mid-November 2025. That multiple assumes monopoly pricing power indefinitely. A credible Chinese alternative compresses the multiple. It does not collapse it. Bernstein's Stacy Raskin flagged exactly this compression risk in his November client note, \n the tickers, layer by layer. ASML multiple compression on China exposure, not revenue collapse. ASM International atomic layer deposition demand tailwind regardless of who wins. Bayside hybrid bonding equipment essential for any stack logic approach, Chinese or Western, and shares are up 47% year-to-date through November 14 per Bloomberg terminal data. Applied Materials, ticker Applied Materials, integrated packaging business benefits. Lam Research, LRCX, and KLA, both critical for etch and metrology in advanced packaging, picks and shovels plays on both sides of the export control wall. Tokyo Electron rounds out the wafer-to-wafer toolchain. If stacked logic becomes the next frontier regardless of geography, these names win on both sides. \n TSMC is the more interesting case. C.C. Wei confirmed on October 17, 2025 that 2 nanometers yields crossed 60% ahead of schedule. The Hsinchu ramp for Apple A20 and Nvidia Rubin is on track. TSMC's process lead has never been wider. But TSMC's moat is the bleeding edge. If cost-sensitive customers, Chinese hyperscalers, Indian cloud providers, Middle Eastern sovereign AI buyers, can buy stacked DUV inference silicon at half the price of an N2 part, the trailing edge volume curve changes. TSMC keeps the crown. It loses some of the kingdom, \n Nvidia. Jensen Huang called China a critical market at GTC in March 2025 while lobbying Washington to soften H20 restrictions. China represented 17% of Nvidia revenue in fiscal 2025 per the 10K. If Ascend 920 ships on schedule with a credible stacked inference architecture, Nvidia's China revenue faces structural pressure. Not a cliff. A grind. The same grind Qualcomm experienced when Huawei built HiSilicon a decade ago, \n the geopolitical layer. Washington's export control regime, codified in the October 2022 BIS rules and tightened in October 2023, was built around one assumption: lock the lithography, lock the future. The architecture vector was always the obvious workaround. DARPA-funded papers flagged it as early as 2021. SMIC publicly cracked 7 nanometers DUV with the Kirin 9000S in August 2023, and hybrid bonding workarounds have been openly discussed in industry circles ever since. You cannot export control a patent filed in Shenzhen. You cannot stop SMIC from running DUV equipment already inside the country at maximum throughput. A Council on Foreign Relations working paper from October 2025 argues that a credible domestic Chinese inference capability could paradoxically reduce Taiwan invasion risk by giving Beijing a viable Plan B. That thesis deserves engagement, not dismissal. \n NDR. Handel Jones of IBS told the Financial Times in October 2025 that the conventional wisdom equating node leadership with market leadership may be obsolete within 36 months. I would not stake a portfolio on that timeline. I would stake it on the direction. Architecture innovation is now a parallel competitive vector to lithography, and the export control framework addresses only one of those vectors /n/n. What to watch over the next 4 quarters. First, SMIC capacity announcements for advanced packaging, aggressive hybrid bonding tool expansion is the leading indicator. Second, Ascend 920 benchmark leaks. Real silicon performance against H20 on standard inference workloads will validate or invalidate the entire thesis. Third, ASML China revenue mix. If DUV and service grow while EUV expectations get cut, LogicFolding is playing out. Fourth, Samsung. Industry sources speaking on background indicate engineer migration from Hsinchu to Pyeongtaek through 2025, and Samsung filed a stacked logic patent in September 2025 with uncomfortable resemblance to the Huawei filing. The architecture race is not bilateral. It is at least four-sided /n/n. LogicFolding may not work at production scale. Triple-layer active logic yield has never crossed 30% in published trials. Huawei could be 3 years from shippable product. Or this could repeat the Mate 60 Pro moment of August 2023, when the Kirin 9000S revealed SMIC had quietly cracked 7 nanometers DUV without Western intelligence noticing. The honest answer is we will know within 18 months, and the signals to watch are public /n/n. If you want to understand who really controls the future of AI before everyone else does, subscribe. I break down one chip war story every week. Next video, the Samsung stacked logic patent that looks suspiciously like LogicFolding, and what the engineer migration from Hsinchu to Pyeongtaek actually tells us. I will walk you through the document trail. Hook_text, 41% of ASML's China revenue under one patent. Scenes. Desk, cinematic close-up of a Chinese patent document on a dark wooden desk under warm tungsten lamplight, visible filing number CN1193420878 typed at the top, magnifying glass resting beside it, shallow depth of field, photorealistic, 8K. Desk, macro shot of a 300mm silicon wafer rotating slowly on a polished metal stage inside a cleanroom, blue and violet LED reflections shimmering across the mirrored surface, photorealistic, 8K. Desk, cross-section render of a vertically stacked microchip showing 3 distinct transistor layers bonded with through-silicon vias, glowing copper interconnects between layers, dark studio background, photorealistic, 8K. Desk, engineers in white cleanroom bunny suits walking through a semiconductor fab corridor bathed in yellow lithography light, soft motion blur, cinematic wide shot, photorealistic, 8K. Desk, extreme macro of microfluidic cooling channels etched into a silicon interposer, tiny droplets of blue coolant flowing through microscopic etched grooves, scientific macro photography, photorealistic, 8K. Desk, Shenzhen skyline at dusk with Huawei headquarters tower illuminated against.